I'm joined today by Dr. Craig Bailey, President and CEO of Novum Nano, and he's going to get into that a little bit. Craig, welcome. Thanks so much for joining us. Craig, this is the second time we've had you in a spotlight, and it's going to be a different audience today. And so I'd just like to start, let's start with you first, Craig. Why don't you tell us about kind of your background and how you ended up back here in the Black Hills of South Dakota?
Okay, well, how many hours do we have for this?
Right, yeah.
Well, I'm a Minnesota farm boy originally. I loved the Black Hills my whole life. Came out here with my parents to go camping. I fell in love with motorcycles and liked the Sturgis Rally, so I've been coming out here for that since about 1979, I believe, and found a way to move out here in 1994. I moved out to be the president and CEO of Landstrom's Black Hills Gold. Since then, I've done a number of other things. Prior to becoming kind of an entrepreneur in this building, the last 6 years, I was president at Western Dakota Tech. So we have a number of for-profit companies that I'm part of, on the boards of a number of things, some other things, Box Elder, Chamber of Commerce, a bunch of other things. So I love the Black Hills. I moved my family out here, got 5 kids. My background academically is a little bit odd. I was a machinist mold maker at a 2-year school, Anoka Tech in Minnesota. Right out of high school, just a little over a decade ago or so. And I used that to be able to afford to keep going to school. I did one stint in the Air Force in the mid-70s. I was crew chief on C-141s. Never out to Ellsworth. I was in South Carolina and some other warmer spots. As a Minnesota boy, that was kind of a cool thing to do. Yeah. I always loved the Black Hills, always loved Rapid City, and found a way to come out here and make my life, and have loved it ever since. So academically, I did the toolmaker job for a while. Went to school to be an engineer, somehow ended up with a bachelor's in psychology, which has worked out pretty good for me trying to figure out myself, mostly.
Yeah.
People may not know that, but I'm, in my mind, still kind of a shy, insecure farm boy. And use that to get a management position at Graco Inc. I was going to work there for a few months to kind of supplement my beer money for the summer, and I ended up being there 13 years. And was running their largest factory when I took the job out here in 1994. So bachelor's in psychology, master's in business administration from University of St. Thomas, and doctorate in education from University of South Dakota. So kind of an odd mixture of things that have worked well for me. I don't think anyone would plan it that way, but that worked out pretty good. Widowed a few years ago. Unfortunately, lost my wife to metastatic breast cancer, and now excited with the things we're doing here at the incubator, and also with VRC, which is a majority shareholder of Novum Nano. Novum Nano was started in February of last year, 19, and in March of this year had its own daughter called Novum Oil. Novum Oil is the one that I think is in this month's Elevate magazine feature of this or that. So I'm the president of Novum Nano, CEO of Novum Oil.
Okay.
And then a bunch of other things. Sure. Black Hills Manufacturing, and I'm still on the board of VRC. Sure. So stay busy. Ride my motorcycles whenever I can.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot.
Good. Still been good weather for it.
It's been a wonderful summer for me for riding. It's socially distant.
Right. So, Craig, your first contact with the incubator and then me was as the Chief Strategy Officer for VRC Metal Systems, who's a proud graduate and alumni of the incubator, now at the Vandenberg School out in Box Elder,
right.
Doing great things.
Yeah.
And then you stayed on as the daughter company took over Novum Nano that stayed here in the incubator. You tell us a little bit about some of that journey. Maybe start with we're going to concentrate on Novum, but can you tell us a little bit about VRC and your journey there, and then we'll transition into Novum?
Well, it's Rob Raby and Christian Widener. Dr. Widener was the AMP lab, the Advanced Materials Processing Lab, back here in the incubator before it was even called Ascent Innovations. So there were a single-digit number of employees. Rob and I were 2 of the 5 co-owners of Black Hills Manufacturing prior to starting VRC. So VRC was kind of born out of an office that BHMS that Rob had with us. We were all together off of Deadwood Avenue back in that was a few years ago, about 8 years ago, I guess.
Okay.
Some of that started. So Rob asked me to help him set up a sales distribution system. And then one thing led to another. So I was the first guy at VRC with sales in their actual title. Everybody did and still does sales.
Sure.
Supersonic particle deposition equipment, or cold spray as the nickname is. I always joke that it's not really cold and it's not really a spray at Mach 3 and 600 degrees C, but it's easier but not as much fun to say than supersonic particle deposition.
Sure, right.
So that company obviously did really well with defense grants, SBR, STTR funding for Army, Navy, Air Force. And that really built the company. It also gave me a pretty good background in writing proposals for defense contracts and meeting those requirements. And that's pretty fun for me as an ex-Air Force guy to be currently working with the Air Force quite a bit. I'm not real active in VRC. I'm still on the board and do some things out there, but my time is almost completely focused on Novum Nano and Novum Oil, which we also have a lot going on with the Air Force. So VRC grew fairly quickly, took over, and I think became the largest tenant here at the incubator. I had an office here since early 2014. I had to start a new company just to stay in the incubator.
Right.
That was really the whole idea. It's such a great place to hang out with you guys that I didn't want to leave. So VRC has done very well. We acquired the old Vandenberg School around 2016. The governor's office came to me with that opportunity, I think late in 15. Jeff Haverly was really a key for that. The Ellsworth Authority, both Pennington and Meade counties, City of Box Elder, and most importantly, the Douglas School District, which owned that building and had vacated it when they built a new Vandenberg Elementary School. So that gave us 55,000 square feet on 10 acres of property that kind of is adjacent on 2 edges next to what they call the school gate, and the campground is right next to the school's old football field. So we started through a lot of help with SBA and some local banks to be able to get the money to do the renovation to turn about a 60-year-old elementary school into a world-class global manufacturing facility, and is now the headquarters for VRC. There's still one wing of that building, the oldest wing, that hasn't been renovated. There's still some work to do. There has been quite a bit to do with asbestos mitigation. So a lot of money went into that building, and has been a really good thing for Box Elder and the Black Hills to be able to have that building come up into a new life like that, particularly working so close with the Air Force and a really wonderful relationship with Ellsworth Air Force Base, the 28th Bomb Wing, just the whole, a gamut of different parts of the Air Force, along with other defense departments that work with VRC and also with Novum Nano in doing research, testing that research. We set up a cold spray lab there that Ellsworth has taken over. I think it was the first one in the United States, a military installation. Pretty exciting, where they were able to repair aircraft parts and do some things that had never been done before. On the B-1 bomber, on one of the leading forward panels on the aircraft, they have a real hard fastener on a fairly lightweight, softer material, and they have to get in there and access that quite frequently, which will wear out these basically the holes that hold the fasteners that hold that panel on. And there was no other way to fix that. That part was a couple $100,000 and would take like a year or more lead time to get. The plane would be grounded without that panel on there. And we were able to use cold spray to basically fill the hole back in that was, wobbling, a kind of egg-shaped, worn-out hole, and then just remachine that hole for that fastener to go back in and put that same part back in service again. That was kind of the beginning of that relationship, and the first of many parts that Ellsworth is repairing at that cold spray center. And they're now doing this all by themselves. They are using the cold spray machine that really created the VRC company. And that's kind of an interesting background with that piece of equipment. Really came out of an experiment with the Army Research Lab. So when cold spray was first really discovered, more than invented, it was in Russia right before the Berlin Wall fell. They were doing leading edge testing of aircraft wing designs, and they didn't have the computers or the high def cameras that they have today. So they would sprinkle. They had the fans to get the air moving really quickly. They would sprinkle aluminum dust into the air and then look at the reaction that the dust would have on the leading edge of the aircraft as they were designing different platforms. And at the end of one of those experiments, Yuri, the guy in charge of that, had his crew scrape off the aluminum off of everywhere that the dust had settled, and they couldn't get it off of some of the equipment. And that was the eureka moment in the late 80s that began what became supersonic particle deposition.
Sure.
And so then the Berlin Wall fell. This Russian scientist.
Unrelated, right?
Unrelated. but the scientist was able to come to the United States.
Yeah.
The Army Research Lab kind of put them under under their wing.
Sure.
And they started working on trying to understand the physics and create an actual machine that could replicate that process of the cold metal welding, cold metal powder deposition, and the material characteristics to make that something that had never been done before, to be able to 3D print parts with those different alloys, because it stays under the melting pool of the base substrate material metal. They don't distort any of the features that are on the actual equipment. So they're able to stay at or below 600 degrees C with a high pressure, kind of a splat that these little particles make in both a mechanical and a metallurgical bond to the substrate surface. And that was really a phenomenon for that to happen. There were some lower pressure cold spray companies out there, and a couple lower pressure and a couple higher pressure, but none of them were able to be handheld and portable. And that was really what the Army Research Lab and other Defense Department entities really needed, that to be able to take that out to the aircraft if need be, instead of having a large fixed shop.
Right.
And that's how VRC started. Patented some of that handheld high pressure supersonic particle deposition equipment, and developed a lot of applications. Ellsworth played a key role in that on the Air Force side, along with the Army Research Lab. And now the Navy has quite a few of these pieces of equipment also. So that was kind of the quick story of VRC started. I had a number of different jobs as we grew. My job was really kind of to replace myself in a lot of things with people that were better at that, whether it was something in operations or sales or whatever all that was. And we really built a pretty strong team. It's just grown since then. Tree Madsen has taken over a lot of the executive role now as the new president. It's been about a year or so, I think, of VRC, which allows Rob to spend more time on strategy and other corporate entities that have been started up under VRC. Novum Nano, probably to me the most exciting one, which is now a daughter and has a granddaughter in Novem Oil. There's also a propeller repair company out in California, Stockton Propeller. There's HRC, which is Heartland Repair Company, that does a lot of work led by Luke Steinmetz in oil and gas applications, large tanks that may have some kind of corrosion that they can repair, real interesting and diverse applications that go in a lot of commercial areas outside of just the Defense Department. So all of that's doing really well. For me, it's fun to watch that success continue without having to carry a lot of the water along the way. So for me, I'm excited in staying in the kind of the newer things that no one's ever done before on the nano side, and all of the applications that will help people, including the Defense Department. So it's kind of a long answer.
Yeah, no, well, let's get into the stuff that you're doing more day to day. You talked about VRC and that background.
Yeah.
Now to today with Novum Nano and Novum Oil and the things to come there.
Yes.
So what is Novum Nano? Well, first, what is the name?
Okay, so the name Novum Nano literally translates from the Latin to mean a little something new.
Okay.
So nano is little, novum is new. We just kind of like the sound of that.
Yeah.
And it's somewhat literal in that we're doing things with these real little particles.
Sure.
Just to give you a scale, VRC works in the micron level of powders, 5 to 50 micron. It's a pretty small particle size. You can see it. It's kind of like a real fine dust. The nano scale now is only measured in 2 dimensions. It's so small, it's not measured 3-dimensional. So it's length and width. And there are a lot of different nanomaterials and applications going on. We have 3 nano companies in this incubator right now, which is pretty good. Frank Custis, who actually lives in Colorado, has his nano, basically a high-tech kind of an anodizing company back in the lab, NanoPrel, which will be doing some medical filtration and other things. And then to me, the most exciting is Novum Nano. And the reason for that is that it will touch a broad group of people, including consumers, at the retail level. So you and I really can't afford to buy a piece of cold spray equipment and don't have a lot of need for some of the other applications in the medical field for some of the things that are happening here. But for the family of products that Novum Nano is working on with the School of Mines, they will touch across all these different areas, and the parts of the School of Mines that are part of helping us really is almost every department in some way, and they now have PhD in nano offered at School of Mines, and we work pretty closely with them also. But it will affect things in metallurgical and mechanical engineering and chemistry, physics, nano, of course, electrical engineering. all of which are opportunities for interns to work with us. We have several that are working with us right now. And so other products, so the first products to market, so that's what's exciting, is commercialized. 99% of the patents issued by the Patent and Trade Office never make enough money to pay for the cost of the patent.
Sure.
So we're told. We don't want to be part of that. We want to be part of that 1%,
right,
that actually is selling and making some revenues off of this, because not only for profits, but we want to create workforce development, which will create economic development here in the Black Hills. So we want to hire students that graduate from the School of Mines, keep them in Rapid City, working for one of these companies. Certainly want them to be part of Novum Nano as appropriate, or VRC, or any of the companies that are coming out of the incubator here. So the first products to market, which I talk a lot about, one is an oil additive. We use a combination of carbon nanotubes and boron nitride nano sheets mixed into synthetic oil. It could also be a standard oil or other gearboxes, etc. But for commercial value and for immediate impact to the Air Force in the use of aerospace ground equipment, is an oil that we call Novem oil. And the commercial name for other retail outlets is, we're hoping to use the name snake oil. And everybody has a lot of fun with me about that I'm a snake oil salesman. We will not ever sell anything that doesn't work. But I codenamed this project snake oil a couple, 2-3 years ago, just to have something to label what we were working on. And I was surprised that so many people had never heard of snake oil, particularly younger people under 30, unless you watched old black and white Gunsmoke episodes with your dad, or you were somehow connected to the pharmaceutical industry.
Sure.
You didn't really, a lot of people didn't know about snake oil. So I had more and more people say, why don't you just call it snake oil? And I had to keep telling the story that, well, snake oil is something that, doesn't really work. It's the guy in the covered wagon that shows up with, a bunch of moonshine that's got a little honey in it and claims to cure all your ailments, and is twice as expensive if you just went down to Miss Kitty's saloon on Front Street and got it there. And the next morning you'd wake up and you'd feel fine that night, that you were drinking this stuff. But the next morning your arthritis and your gout or whatever would still be there. And the snake oil salesman had moved on sometime before morning. And so hence the name snake oil salesman. Although snake oil actually, interestingly, has been used for probably 1,000 years ago in China. They would squeeze the fat of a water snake to make an analgesic topical cream that reduced inflammation and pain. So it actually, started out as something probably still being used, but I'm sure it's a little more scientific nowadays.
Sure.
It actually came out of something that did work, and then in the 1870s Wild West out here, it morphed into the snake oil salesman. So
what does your snake oil or Novum oil do?
All right, so good question. So there are 5 things that we need to be able to prove objectively through scientific methodology that this works. Those things are increase torque, increase the horsepower, increase fuel economy, decrease friction as measured by the coefficient of friction, and the last thing would be increased life expectancy of any internal combustion engine or other applications such as transmissions and gearboxes, et cetera, et cetera. So the way this happens is it reduces friction. So these small little particles are able to go into areas that are smaller than the oil particles, and those little imperfections are where friction and heat are created. So if those parts of the chrome-plated, polished, honed, internal moving parts of internal combustion engines are slipperier, so to speak, smoother, more lubricious, they will have less stress on the engine. Those little things all add up to friction. Friction creates heat and a lot of problems, basically. Not just in oils, but also in greases, which will be our second product, and I can talk a little bit about that also. So those 5 things have to be able to be measured. We did, thanks to Al Riemann and Black Hills Harley-Davidson, right before COVID started, we were allowed the use of their technician and their dynamometer for a full day, along with several of their motorcycles that they had history on, knew the maintenance, the oil, mileage, etc. So we used a variety of Harley-Davidson engines, motorcycles in the dynamometer, and we did a total of 102 dynamometer runs throughout an entire day. And every motorcycle that we ran through there, we started out with just the way it was. Then we did, once it was armed up, we did another set of 3 dynamometer runs. Then we added a little bit of snake oil into that. And then we would add a little bit more and look at, again, 3 dynamometer runs for each one of those settings of the oil additive. And found that basically between 4% and 11% improvement in both torque and horsepower. So everything we put this in, it has improved torque, horsepower, and given better fuel economy. So those are pretty specific things. If you put this in your car, and we have about 20 of them running around the Black Hills, cars and pickups, the first thing you notice is it feels like it's got more torque to take off. So, wow, it's faster. That's pretty subjective. Torque and horsepower measured on a dynamometer are not subjective. They're very objective. And that's really a scientific evidence of the impact, cause and effect of putting the oil additive, the nano-based oil additive, into an internal combustion engine. Fuel economy, you'll notice that if you keep track of your fuel and you do similar things, you run the same routes to work or whatever, and then add the snake oil to that vehicle and check what was your miles per gallon. And so we have seen an increase of 5%. Some people have reported over 10%. I probably had the worst at about 5% because I really just don't care about fuel efficiency. I hate to admit that publicly, but I drive it hard. I let it warm up in the winter. I let it cool off in the summer. I don't keep track of my mileage typically. I just drive and like to drive. So other people have been very adamant about keeping track of their mileage and have records. I'm sure, like they're a great history of little notebooks of this is where I got gas, this is what I paid for it, this is how much fuel I used for those miles. And so that is still considered anecdotal. It's a softer science. It's not really statistically valid proof of this. So larger sampling will be really important to do that. And lucky for us, we have Ellsworth Air Force Base as part of our testing that actually we're having a meeting next Tuesday with them. Lori Vega is really the civilian person that helps organize all of that, and has been a tremendous help to us, representing a lot of things she does for Ellsworth Air Force Base. Specifically for us, we're going to be testing a number of different things that we have funding for, and I can talk a little bit about those research projects that have been funded for these nano-based products. So next week we're going to meet and we're going to look at their law enforcement vehicles, some generators, other equipment. Some things just sit there and run and they measure time, but they have really good data on how much fuel they use, either for how long an engine is run or for how many miles that they've driven that vehicle. So this will be a larger scale test that will have statistical relevance, specifically on fuel economy. Sure. So that will really add to the science that we've already done on coefficient of friction, the torque and horsepower increase. So it might be snake oil, but it's not the snake oil that our parents knew. So we have some issues to work through on the trademarking side before we actually end up bottling and selling that. We're hoping to obtain the trademark. We have Nano Venom kind of as a backup name, which we also kind of like. We did some market testing down in Dallas at the Great American Trucking Show. Last time they had that, it was a year ago in August. And we had containers with our labels of Novum oil and snake oil. And I would hold them up and ask people, and these are truckers, owner-operators, small fleets, and large corporations, you know, a little bit of a gnarly group. They'll tell you what they're thinking.
Yeah.
And they would laugh and say, finally, an honest salesperson admits they're snake oil salesman. And so out of the first 100 people that came up that I said, which of these would you be more likely to select? I should have brought them with me today. If you were at AutoZone or Champion Auto or somewhere, which would you be more likely to take off the shelf? And it was over 90% took the snake oil bottle. Okay. So that told me, well, that's maybe that creates a market connection to consumers that they're going to remember when they see that. There'll be some mnemonic image of that snake, and they'll think snake oil. Yeah, that's, you know, I heard Mitch is running that stuff, and it's pretty good. So I'm going to try that, because there's a whole aisle full of coolant and fuel and oil additives at every auto parts place. So our first customer and most important to us is Department of Defense, the Air Force in particular. We have a number of grants, competitive research grants that we have won, 4 phase 1 and 3 phase 2s that we've been awarded since just a little over a year ago. This is a pretty great success. The strength of the School of Mines, the team that we have, Dr. Haiping Hong, Dr. Greg Christensen, the support we have from VRC. I'm kind of just a guy that's out front trying to help build the team, find some commercial markets, some relationship building. I work with a lot of really smart people. I kind of half joke that every room I walk into, I lower the average IQ. So, you know, my job is just to help them be successful in finding real world applications in using these different products. So that's fun to me. It's creating successful business opportunities. It always gives me a little patriotic joy to be able to help the Air Force or Department of Defense to solve problems and be more efficient. If we can save them, all Department of Defense areas, save them money or extend the range of a drone aircraft during a mission, or have one less risky refueling trip with IEDs and things in the ways. This could actually save lives. It'll save money. It'll make them more efficient, extend their ranges of supporting the mission of the warfighter. That's pretty exciting. Yeah. Because part of all of those defense contracts has a commercialization aspect, and we get points for those proposals. And that's kind of really my main job in the writing of proposals, along with just kind of polishing up the wording a little bit and making sure we meet the requirements as stated in the call for the proposal. And so commercialization means literally selling this outside of finding Air Force customers and others, but selling this to the commercial world. Right. Our Congress likes to see that the investments in Department of Defense have also benefits to the civilian world, and so that's kind of one of the big parts of my job is that commercialization side. Hence some of the names. So that's all pretty exciting, particularly with the oil additive side of what we're doing.
Sure. Let me got a few interactions here. We got a USD fan, go Yotes, and then a couple questions here for you, Craig. Right. How many full-time employees do you have working for you, and how many School of Mines interns do you have a year?
Well, during a year, we maybe have about a half a dozen. We have 3 active right now that are working quite a bit with us. We will have more of those, and in broader areas. Right now, the guys that we have, they at this time are all gentlemen. we have 2 masters, 1 PhD student, electrical engineering and nanotechnology. And then really full-time employees, we have myself and Dr. Greg Christensen. Dr. Haipeng Hong works as a School of Mines employee for us, also full-time, but School of Mines is really our subcontractor. So everything that we do, somewhere between a third and a half of those dollars go to the School of Mines for staff, for testing, for equipment, as really our right-hand partner in everything that we do.
Sure.
So we work very closely, and we do that here at the incubator. It probably would have been fun if we had this scanning the lab
Sure,
back there, because we have a lot going on there. We are, I don't know if I completely answered the question there.
You got
So
that one.
we there's about a half a dozen of us at any given time. There will be a lot more of us as we grow. So we're heavily research-based right now. We technically haven't sold anything. We're on the edge of being able to do that. We're doing bottle design and label design on oil bottles. 4-ounce bottle would do a car. 32-ounce bottle would do a semi that has 44 quarts of oil in it. We'll do gallon, 5-gallon, 55-gallon drums. We may end up doing larger bulk containers for military use that might require a mil spec for a nano-based oil. Some of those we just haven't got there yet.
Sure.
But doing pretty good with 7 research awards already. One of those we do with VRC is for a battery. We also have electrically conductive coating material, the nano-based oil, a grease that can be both electrically, thermally conductive, both, and also lubricating. So together there's 4 phase 1s, 3 phase 2 awards. Just the Novum Nano side of those are $900,000 to date. It looks like a little over $1 million when we add the battery side to it. So that's a joint venture with Cold Spray Materials on a battery with VRC.
Sure.
HF Webster is the research arm of the company that we kind of work under with all of the contractual requirements being met for various things that you have to do to be able to accept this money from the Defense Department.
Sure. We got a technical question, and then we're going to get into more of a general business question.
Oh, okay.
Thanks, Shiloh. First, does it work for fuel pump engines as well?
Yes, it doesn't have to be. So you're thinking like a carbureted engines, fuel pumps?
Probably so.
Well, they might all have fuel pumps, but yeah, the answer is yes. Any internal combustion engine. We started with a 2-semester senior design project last year with the mechanical engineering department. We had about 10 students. The last thing they did before they got their ME degrees from the School of Mines was this project. And we did a lot of things with lawnmowers, but we measured the weight of fuel used over time with different various concoctions. Measured coefficient of friction, tore the engine apart a number of times to look at what the impact, if any, was. And so it will work in any internal combustion engine, cars, trucks, motorcycles, lawnmowers. It will work in generators. Again, anything that uses an oil, whether it's standard oil or synthetic oil, doesn't matter. It will improve the coefficient of friction, and that will result in all of these other things like improving torque, horsepower, fuel economy, et cetera. So I believe the answer is yes on all of those and other things that we will branch into that we just haven't had time to test, gearboxes and other oil applications. The grease, which I just kind of briefly mentioned, will have a name called Novum Cool. It has a similar looking snake. Will be another daughter company of Novum Nano. And that one is particularly a thermal grease. So this will work in moving heat generated by electronics. So in your cell phone, you have a thermal grease layer underneath here that Its sole job is to move heat away from the electronics. That's why your phone gets warm and you charge it and use it a lot. So nobody really knows that that grease wasn't there, you'd burn up your screen. So our grease, as an aftermarket grease, will move this thermal energy faster than anything else out there. So the first application would be, think of for gamers. If you and I are gamers and we build our own computers, we have thermal pads and thermal grease with the CPU and the graphics card. And the faster you can move heat, the faster that computer can clocking speed. So if you and I are gamers and we're both excellent race car drivers, but you have this Novum cool thermal grease in yours, your computer will clock faster and you can kill more zombies than I can.
Okay.
So now think, okay, well, killing zombies is kind of cool, but what else? Well, now think of sword fighting Russian hackers in the Defense Department.
Servers.
If you can move faster in your real-time warfighter of that particular application, that's some real value. But there's lots of other things that will work in electronic devices. So that one, we believe we have won. We haven't got the final contract signed yet, but we're on the intend to fund list for a phase 1 award on the grease.
Okay.
So kind of
right.
answer a lot more than what the question
Got that one, Craig. All right, so take off your researcher and technician hat for a minute and put on your president hat.
Okay.
What barriers do you think there are for startups in this region?
Barriers in this region. So one of the things that startups need are lots of support. And you may be brilliant at one thing, but you're going to have to be pretty good at a lot of things to have a successful for-profit business. Right? So places like the incubator are tremendously helpful to provide a lot of support and a meeting place, not just literally, but a place where you can connect with all of the different support. You may need different types of scientists or engineers to help perfect what it is you're doing. You might need help in being able to write business plans or do accounting or work with patent lawyers or connecting to different government agencies that might be able to help you with some of those things, or small business association or the administration or the Small Business Innovative Research Awards, things like that that you really are you might need and are really important for trying to help you have all the things that you need here. The other things you need are some kind of skill sets in whatever it is that your business is going to be doing, that product or service. You might need to patent something or do trademarks. It's really important that you do that at the right time before somebody steals any of that. Also, financing is probably one of the biggest hurdles. We're kind of a small town here. Our whole state is sort of a small town in a lot of ways compared to the larger cities. So we don't have what we would call the shark tanks here. In general, we have some local investment groups that do a really good job that might be able to help. The friendly sharks I call dolphins. I don't like to work with the sharks, but the dolphins are a little bit more fun.
Sure.
They don't try to just come in and take control of your company and, leave you with just a little bit and they get all the money and et cetera. That's making money off of your ideas. So to balance that between you maintaining the control that you want or don't want, the amount of return on your investment, operating capital, which is really important, particularly when you're scaling a company, right? If you're going to grow, if you have a product, a lot of times companies that buy your product pay you in 90 days. Well, they might have ordered 2 more times over that 90-day period. So there's a lot of things in just knowing how to do that that are a challenge everywhere. Maybe a little bit more of a challenge here, just because we're kind of a small town. And we're a little bit like going back in time in mostly good ways.
Yeah.
That's why it's such a beautiful, wonderful place to live also. But the flip side of that is, you need help. And that's why the Ascent Innovations Incubator and having School of Mines and the other universities around to help are hugely important. You just got to reach out there and be willing to do a lot of work. Probably spend all your time and all your money and hopefully make it.
Craig, you mentioned you've had some success in government contracts, SBIR, Small Business Innovation Research.
Right.
Elevate Rapid City is partnered with the PTAC and Governor's Office of Economic Development. They're going to do a series on obtaining government contracts, and maybe one of my friends would put the sign-up link in the chat there. From your perspective, though, what advice or what's been your experience in trying to be a small company competing and obtaining these government contracts against the big primes?
Well, the SBIRs, of course, are for small, and in this case, that's a company under 500 employees. So that, for us, that's not a small company out here.
Right.
But in the federal government contracting world, that's a small company. So connecting with Gary Archambault, works out of Sioux Falls as the SBIR person, funded through a number of different agencies here in South Dakota, is hugely important to get on that list, to know what are the things that they're interested in, what are the calls where they say we're looking for proposals on all of these specific problem areas, and it gets really technical and really deep. So that's the first thing you need to do, is you need to connect with what is even in the possibility to be able to work with the government. Defense Department, could be NASA, Department of Energy, all of the above are part of that. So that's hugely important. Connecting with them, connecting with the incubator. I might have got a little off track here. You can guide me if I'm.
No, that was great. So then I'm going to make sure I give you a couple last words here. We're coming up on our last 10 minutes, but I do want to emphasize, you mentioned that you are part of the most recent issue of the Elevate Rapid City magazine. Maybe we'll get that link to where they can find the magazine as well. So it talks a little bit more about Novum oil. But so I don't forget it, Craig, how do we find you, and how do we learn more about Novum oil, Novum Nano, Novum Cool? What's the best way to learn more and get more information outside of the magazine, of course, which is a great interview.
Right. So of course, we're here in the incubator, and we welcome people to be able to look at what we're doing. It's pretty exciting. The lab area, we took over pretty much most of what VRC had when they left. We've, through your help and others on the board, we've been able to take over that and pretty much filled it up with quite a bit of equipment. Of course, we have a website, novumnano.com. A little bit of a placeholder right now, but there is a place that you can connect with us through that site, Novum Nano.
We'll get somebody to type that one up
logo
too. Yeah.
There. It's not as hard to say as supersonic particle deposition.
Right.
So we have some of the things that we're doing on there, but we don't have a lot yet. That's part of what we're doing right now, actually. So in other products that we're going to be doing that people might be interested in, so we have the oil additives, we have the thermal greases. There will also be electrical greases, lubricating greases. We're doing these paints or electrically conductive coatings. So this can move electrical energy in a lightning strike on an aircraft faster than the current materials that they do put on that. Also safer in the types of materials that they use, less carcinogenic, et cetera. Other products that we have patents on. We have about 8 patents with School of Mines. Our newest one is just a couple months old. It's pending, and that's the oil additive. Other product lines are going to be organic light-emitting diodes, phase change materials. Think of a material that could absorb heat all day long and then let that heat out at night. So there are a lot of applications in energy storage, solar storage, et cetera, remote, also commercial kitchens, building materials, et cetera. Organic light emitting diodes is really the newest form of the most high-tech 4K and above television sets. I think we're up to 5K and 8K now on some movie cameras. So organic light emitting diodes. Memristor, Wikipedia would say that's theoretical. We have a patent pending with the School of Mines on that. Basically, a resistor can remember its last act without an external power supply. So you start thinking of solid state, off the grid computer, the next generations of computers. Some of these are the applications that we will, in the long run, have product families that already we have 4 patents issued and 4 patents pending, and some other ones that kind of seminal patents that tie in all with the School of Mines. So we partner pretty closely with the School of Mines. And when the new Ascent Innovations buildings gets finished off here in a few months, I expect that I'm going to have be part of the things you guys are proud of over there, with a window office, 10 by 20 or something.
He's getting this on camera.
Yeah, I'm getting it on camera. We were part of that original EDA grant to justify that. So we hope to keep this area that we have in the building, whatever happens in the future, because of the relationship with the School of Mines, the faculty, the students. We want to be able to continue doing research, subcontract with school, and be able to, get those best and brightest cream of the crop students, hire them, keep them here, create more workforce and economic development in Rapid City. So that's a lot from a question of how do you get a hold of us. NovumNano.com.
Sure, we got that one. Well, Craig, you mentioned some awards in the government research,
Yes.
SBIR and things like that, which are the most important awards to you. I know those are the big monetary ones,
Yeah.
but I want to congratulate you and give you the last word on both your parent company, VRC, being named again to the Inc. 5000 fastest growing companies list, and more importantly to Novum Nano being named the winner of this year's Governor's Giant Vision competition. So
thank you.
congratulations on being a part of both of those, and I'm sure being a major part of both those success. And if you could just touch on that experience and where that goes from here.
Well, pretty fun to be part of winning the Governor's Giant Vision twice. And the whole Inc. 500, Inc. 5000, both of which we have been on for VRC, was part of the strategy guy's job before. So that's pretty exciting. I knew that the Governor's Giant Vision really is kind of the state's largest award for for-profit companies from the Chamber of Commerce and the Governor's Office of Economic Development. So that of course comes with $20,000, which we're putting all of in intellectual property of patents and trademarks. So that could not be more important to us than winning that. Pretty exciting to be part of that again. A lot of work to do that. Of course, everybody in the state is able to apply for that, and it gets whittled down. The spreadsheets that you have to do to show that you're part of that, the vision, the intellectual property, the business plans can seem a little ominous. There are agencies here in Rapid City as part of the state that can help put some of those things together. Having been through it before, it really helped a lot. Having an MBA with lifetime experience also helps to tell the story of what you're doing, how this IP can be capitalized and commercialized in a way that will actually affect, again, workforce and economic development. So we're really proud of that. It's been a huge honor. We're thankful for that, and we put that money to really good use in intellectual property. So
fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, Craig, I know you're a busy man. Got to get back to your research.
Right.
So I'll give everybody about 5 minutes back here. So again, go out into the Elevate Rapid City YouTube page to see this again, or catch any parts that you missed, or just watch the whole thing over again. You saw where to get a hold of Novum Nano there in the chat, novumnano.com, where to find Craig's article in the recent issue of the magazine, and also our upcoming government contracts webinar series that Craig mentioned. So with that, Craig, thanks so much. Always a pleasure. Always very interesting to hear from you, and have a great day.
Thank you, Mitch. Thanks, Ascent. Thanks, Elevate. It's great to be part of this group.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everybody.